Think about it. Every hiring decision is a choice that can make or break a team, a culture, and even an entire company. So how do we make the right choice? Hi, I'm Dr. Mickey, and welcome to Inside the Mind of Hiring. Here we'll uncover the psychology and strategy behind effective hiring. Because the right fit isn't just about skill or experience. It's about understanding people, their motivations, their strengths, and the shadows of their shortcomings. Together, we'll tackle the tough questions. How do we look beyond bias? How do we find the qualities that make people not just qualified hires, but the right hires? This is about identifying leaders who drive success, lift morale, and actualize a company's vision. Inside the Mind of Hiring starts now.
Hey everybody, welcome. I'm Dr. Pat, and I get to take this awesome journey with Dr. Mickey Fineberg. Today, we're going to talk about something that Dr. Mickey and I were talking about. You know, we were kind of chit-chatting after the series of shows we've done on recruiting, and there are a couple things that really triggered this, Dr. Mickey. One was we were talking about C-suite executives, and by the way, there is not even a single company that if you don't have an AI background, you know how I know this? Brendan Bouchard is one of the top, let me teach you how to be a coach guy. And his whole site is AI built. And I'm like, why? So here we are so you and I were talking and we were like, Dr. Mickey, how many times did you have to reinvent yourself? So today is the power and urgency of self-reinvention.
Right.
Ouch. Ouch.
Well, you know what prompted
Don't turn the show off, everybody. It's not going to be that painful.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that because, you know, this was prompted by the last episode we did last week on that senior vice president business services candidate that's he's in this exciting journey of reinventing his career from a background fellow, a support guy, to a guy who's really running and driving businesses. Yeah. And I think he's going to do it. I'm betting he's going to do it. And but I want to talk about how, you know, so what can prompt a person to seek and achieve a fundamental change for the better? And this topic is particularly important for professionals, managers, and executives, particularly for leaders, or those who want to become leaders, in terms of the adaptation challenges that's being posed by this rapidly emerging world of AI. So it's out there, everybody.
You know, look, somebody asked me a question. I know they got to be asking you all these questions because look at you. You're at the top of the food chain when it comes to who do you want to hire to help you make a great decision on C-suite people. You call Dr. Mickey. That's who you call. Because Dr. Mickey doesn't leave any stone unturned, even if the largest cockroach in the world crawls out from under that. And I don't know if people have noticed this, Dr. Mickey, but we've been talking about people. Remember when we did the role play? We talked about people that reinvented themselves. I watched the last episode of Martha Stewart's show last night called Yes, Chef. Now, not a great show, but I really loved watching Martha. Now, let's talk about this. Can people really change, Dr. Mickey? And what kind of metamorphosis, change, caterpillar effect have you gone through?
Me?
Oh, yeah, you.
Oh, okay.
You. What's that line? You.
Well,
yes, you.
Thanks for teeing that up, especially for a business psychologist.
Well, what did you think? I mean, like one behavioral psychologist to another.
No, we can jump into that right now.
Jump in.
And thank you. Everybody likes to talk about themselves, but I was growing up. My DNA was more personality-wise. It's more like my mom. My mom was actually, she was quite a beautiful woman. People said if you remember, have seen pictures of Hedy Lamarr, they used
oh my God,
told me that that's who she looked like. And she was a wonderful mom and very to me and my sister, very connected, very involved. And but for us, the family, she was like that and very encouraging as well. And with her close friends, she was kind of like that. But for the most of people, she was relatively reserved, shy, a little critical, and aloof. And whereas my father, uh, he was in business for himself and successful. He was a war hero as a supply officer in the Second World War. He was a Darby's Ranger. He was more warm, gregarious, outgoing, effusive. Uh,
That's a big
he
word.
yeah, he really got to know. He was very inquisitive and solicitous with people, and really got them to admit to their vulnerabilities, so he could give them advice, and they always appreciated his advice. And as a teenager, he was telling me, Mickey, you're a little bit. I was like my mother. My sister was like my father, but I was more like my mother, and that's where my DNA is, personality wise. So he would give me feedback. He would say, see me in a social situation, and say, Mickey, you're a little bit aloof. You're a little bit too reserved and shy. He said, you really should step it up, come across a little bit more with people, step it up socially, turn it on with people. And, I did acknowledge to myself that, God, my father's pretty successful in business and in life. And, I really wanted to please my dad.
Mm-hmm.
So I was kind of inspired. I decided to change. I decided to become more of a people person.
Mm-hmm.
Became a little bit, more warm. I became more outgoing, more gregarious. I realized that people didn't want to hear me talk, so I asked them a lot of questions because they wanted to talk about themselves. And it was a conscious effort. It
Mm-hmm.
was not easy. Particularly if I was in a new social situation or some kind of situation where I didn't know a lot of people, but I had to push myself to extend myself to people. And it started to work for me. I saw it started to work and have benefits socially in my senior year in high school. I continued it in college and graduate school and in my career. And I kind of owe my success. Dr. Pat, it's not what you know, it's who you know. You know that.
Yeah.
And I, really took on a different persona. And, when people hear I'm shy, when I tell them I'm actually like my mom, is more reserved than shy, they don't believe it.
Yeah,
But,
they don't.
I really got onto it. And
Yeah.
so what I discovered, in my profession and everything is people, Pat, Dr. Pat, I want to ask you about you. But before I say that, people don't really, somebody said to me, a professional, people don't change. And I knew what
I
she
know,
meant.
I heard that.
Yeah. So, if people are genuinely inspired, or on the other hand, they're desperate, they're fearful, they're traumatized, all those things can inspire change in people that's more lasting and fundamental. So tell me about you.
Well, look, let's answer the first question first, and I will tell you about me. But let's look at some of the people that do change. I know you and I the other day were talking about George Foreman. What a
Right.
great perspective. And by the way, I am so far on the internet scale, people do not even realize that I can say that. What they don't realize that this is a passion purpose thing. The minute I got behind a mic, I'm like Beyonce. Beyonce is pretty reserved until she gets on that thing and does, like that crazy in
Right.
love song, because she says she turns into an alter ego.
Right.
And,
I
for me,
believe that. I
I
believe
believe
that.
it because I'm kind of the same way. But boy,
Yeah.
if you see me in social settings with my friends, I'm sitting there and I am not saying a thing. But
Right.
George Foreman, brilliant
Oh
transformation.
man, that was in honor of his passing.
Yeah.
He's a person that made the most fundamental global infrastructure sweeping change I've ever
Mhm.
witnessed, or one of the ones that I ever witnessed. I mean, when he was coming up as a professional fighter, he was sullen, he was surly, he was mean, he was standoffish, not to mention reserved and shy. They were his best traits. Uh, Menacing, he had it all the downside stuff, but he was, that drove him to be a successful fighter and champion, ultimately a champion. And he actually retired after a loss. He lost to Jimmy Young,
Yeah.
and he was inspired though. After that, he had apparently had a religious epiphany and became a preacher. And when he became a preacher, his whole persona shifted. I mean, warm, outgoing, gregarious, positive, kind, all those things that he wasn't before. I
Yeah.
mean, and sincerely so, sincerely so. And then he actually entered the ring after that again, the oldest fighter at age 45 to do so. And he knocked out Michael Moore, I think it was in the eighth or 10th round. It was kind of late in the fight. And he was heavyweight champion again.
Yeah.
Believe it. But he had a much better attitude going into that. He was more positive. But he didn't stop there. He and everybody, a lot of people know this. He founded the George Foreman Grill.
Yeah. Oh my God. Blockbuster.
Yeah, and he promoted it. He was the pitch man for the company, and he couldn't be more positive. He couldn't get the smile off his face. Couldn't be a better salesman for his product. And the guy makes over $100 million on the George Foreman Grill, which is immensely more than he ever made as a professional fighter. Go figure. So he's amazing. He's amazing, and it really can be done. But again, it involves being lit up by inspiration, or on the other hand, desperation, fear, or trauma.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, so tell me about you, Pat.
Well, I tell you about me, but I'll tell you, I've been influenced by movies all of my life. So you have
Right.
to keep that in mind when you hear part of my journey. A very young age, I hated to be in the house. So I would get on my bicycle, I'd drive to the movie theater, and I had to climb this horrific hill. So there was a part of me that always knew it was going to be me. So here's the part of me: a
Right.
steep hill at about, I don't even know, like 90 degrees or some ridiculous thing on a 3-gear bike. And I have to ride up the hill to get to the movies. Now, most people wouldn't, they would have gotten off the bike and walked, but not me. I'm going to conquer the hill. I'm going to ride up
Right.
the hill. I don't care if
Right.
I'm in pain or if I fall.
Right.
And
Of
every time I
course.
went to so that was a part of me.
Mm.
But the other part of me was embedded at a young age. So here's the good news: I had the power of a very loving mother. Even
Mhm.
though she took a life, I had the power of her. Then I
Mm.
had the power of a very amazing stepmom, and she taught me about perseverance. But I went back to my high school reunion in
Mhm.
23.
Right. Oh, that's always fun.
Well, Gwen Cruz, Plainfield High School, y'all, you can look me up, Plainfield High School. Gwen Cruz found me and she
Right.
called me, and it was like, oh my God, you are not dead. I said, yeah. He said, honestly, you are homeless. We heard you got beat up. Then somebody said you got killed in Vietnam. We thought
Right.
you were dead. And then we found you. Are
Mm.
you the Pat Baccili from Plainfield High School? I said, yes, I am. And she said, no way.
Mm.
What does that tell you?
What is that? What did she
Right?
see?
She's like, you cannot be. She said, everybody saw something in you, every teacher, everybody. She said, but we had no idea you could become a person in the world that is so committed to helping other people. And it
Mm.
was interesting. I went back to the reunion. I sat at the table with my 93-year-old principal of Plainfield High School. It was the funnest thing. But she's right. I I look at my life today. Here's the thought Linda and I had sitting in the other room. Launching a business and being who we are, the Transformation Network, every challenge we've had, even on trademarks, the universe, God, whatever you believe, has intervened to keep us moving forward at record pace. But
Right.
there are some days, Dr. Mickey, I'm sure you have them,
Yeah.
where you think, I don't know if I'm going to make it through today. But
Right.
it's
Or the
simply
year.
part of, or the year,
Yeah.
but it's simply part of your life's path. Now, what did I have to change to be here? My character, I think, was always the same. I
Right.
was generous. Yes, I was feisty. I'm not as crazy as I was. You know, when you stop drinking, that means you do not go after a 250-pound guy in a bar with a pool stick.
No.
That was me. That was me, Dr. Mickey. Oh my God, I got so many stories. I'm embarrassing
My
myself
goodness,
now.
you were rather brash and a little
Man,
bit foolish courageousness.
I got arrested at 19 because a cop was going through my car, my Volkswagen car with all the peace signs and whatnot on it, my little
Right.
car, Volkswagen with the
Yeah.
peace. So he was rummaging through the back because, okay, I'm 19. I lived in my car, just to be clear.
Sure.
And I didn't like
Why
it.
not?
And I grabbed his
Right.
arm. And I had a Jimi Hendrix long fringe jacket on.
Wow.
And that jacket grabbed the butt of his gun.
Wow.
And then he started to push me away. And
Right.
with it came the gun and the
Right. I was
policeman.
right. Right. I was going to draw his gun. Right.
But you know how I get through days sometimes that are
Hmm.
hard? I think about how those incidents didn't turn out the way that they could have. And I'm
Right.
reminded that there's so many points in time in my life.
Jeez.
There's so many times, but they all help shape you. And so that's what happened to me when I got
Right.
sober. I got
Right.
very clear of what was going to work for me and what wasn't. But it was a real
Right.
tough journey to really look at myself and say,
Sure.
I don't like you.
Right.
You
Right.
better do
So
something.
you basically had the trauma of crashing in a few major instances,
Few million times.
and yeah,
I mean,
and
Dr. Mickey, I got to tell you, look at, I used to get my friend's race car, a 68 Firebird and a 69 Firebird and 287. You know Route 287 in Jersey? You know that road?
yes,
287? Okay.
yeah, yeah,
And
been
78?
on it, yeah.
Okay. So before it was built, we used to go out there and I used to drag race in that
Goodness,
car. Now here's the trick. It wasn't just drag racing, is the car that stopped the farthest down the road before the road terminated. You understand?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Can you have a
yeah,
visual of this,
yeah.
everybody? It's like
This
you're
is
on a brand
literal,
new highway. It is not
right,
finished yet. But the
right.
car that finished first and came
Avoided
closest to the edge
right.
would win. I thought nothing
It's
of it.
interesting. It's a kind of car rally, but it's a
Oh
lot
my God,
risky.
it's but see, that's still part of me. That spark is still
Mhm.
part of me.
Right,
Now,
right.
I am not going to do that. I am not going to be drag racing. Although I wonder if somebody gave me an opportunity to drag race, I'd probably be like Brad Pitt and get in a car and go do something. But that's
Right,
more Linda. Linda
right.
has always wanted to be a race car driver. And when you get in the
Yeah.
car with Linda, you better have a helmet on right now.
Okay. But your personal mission was to help people.
I didn't know it,
Right.
but I
But
just did it.
so when you knew it, when you got that, what did that do for you?
Well, it made me depressed to go through school for 10 years, only to realize I wasn't as greedy as I thought I was and didn't want to go work in corporate
Right.
America at a big, high paying job. And I was depressed when I
Hmm.
had to really think about how do I reinvent myself? Where do I go now? I've just
right.
spent $100,000 on a degree. I don't know why it's going to help me, but you know why? You know why I got that degree?
Yeah.
So I could be called
Why?
Dr. Pat
There you go. Okay.
on the Dr. Pat show.
Yeah, but that gave the Dr. Pat show, but
Ah,
that gave you license to fulfill your mission as well in some way.
exactly.
Right.
But don't you
That's
find in
great.
your life, Dr. Mickey, that there have been breadcrumbs all along the way?
Yeah, yeah,
You just had to
yeah.
see them.
Yeah, yeah. You have to see where the reinforcement and the support is coming from,
Yeah.
and to be able to take advantage of that. No question. But we go ahead.
No,
Go
I
ahead.
love to watch actors and actresses. My favorite actress, and I wish she were doing more stuff, is Rooney Mara. When she played, I love to see how these people either transform themselves, but the best they do is when they're in roles that are most like them. When she was in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and then they didn't bring her back for the second
Is that
movie,
her name?
Rooney Mara.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
knew the
She's
movie. Your
incredible.
Girl with the Dragon.
Incredible. It's
It was
incredible.
unbelievable movie.
Right.
Unbelievable movie.
But then when they did the repeat, I'm like, why don't you bring her back?
Yeah.
They didn't know. So you, Charlize Theron in Monster and then
Oh
Mad
wow.
Max. So you
Hmm.
watch these people and you see them show up on interviews, and you have to ask yourself,
Right.
will the real Charlize raise your hand? But here's the thing, why can't we be all of that?
We can, and this is the we have to be now. Why do we have to be? This AI thing, this AI thing is the real millennium.
Oh my gosh.
The millennium didn't happen in 2000. Everybody was all jacked up about it. You remember that?
Yeah,
No big deal. This, I believe, is a big deal now.
it's a
Uh,
giant deal. Giant
right.
deal? Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is. And we have to be proactive in this emerging world right now. A key AI executive who is CEO of his own company, it's relatively successful. It is successful so far. He said, 50% of the jobs are going to be obsolete in what is it, 3 years?
Yeah,
So that if that doesn't inspire you or make
3 years or
you
less. Some people are
3 years
saying
or less,
less. Yeah,
yeah, I mean, really. So I think we're all under the pressure of trauma if we don't do it, fear if we don't do it, but also the opportunity if we do. Um, we got to be more proactive individuals in our society in order to make
yeah.
things happen now.
Well, you
And
have to be on board with the risks too, Dr. Mickey, right?
oh yeah, we
Yeah.
have to, in some
AI
ways,
AI
uh,
is a gas tank full of fuel
sure is.
for fraud.
Oh yeah, yeah, and
Oh,
scam and fraud, and you got to
oh,
be able to protect yourself as
yeah,
well as taking advantage of the opportunity.
I
So
know.
it's self-protection
I
and
know.
opportunity should be inspiring people to really think about how do I gear up for this? Some people may be ready right now, and some people are ready because they're doing it. I have a feeling the vast majority of us have to get going, including yours truly.
It
Okay.
is so bizarre. I had somebody send me a clip and put a picture of me actually moving like it was me in a protest march in Washington, D.C. recently.
Wow. Well, actually,
I was not in Washington,
no, no,
D.C.
see, and you weren't doing a protest more.
But you
It may
see,
have
that's
been
it.
you at one time in your life, but
Well, it may have been my heart that wished that I would have been doing more, but we have to reinvent ourselves more now than ever, ever.
yeah, yeah, that's
Parents,
my point.
parents have to reinvent themselves in order
Yeah,
to manage and help their children evolve just with AI on the way. Can you imagine how many parents are like, honey, what are you doing? You have an
right,
assignment in AI, and they're like, what?
right.
What happened to math?
Well, exactly. But it's parents can't be putting their head in the sand now, with their kids. They got to be involved. They got to be engaged, and they've got to be really learning this stuff themselves and being very proactive about how it's going to impact themselves and their families and their professional careers if they're in a professional career. It really is important. We got to make things happen, Dr. Pat. We can't see things happen, and for God's sake, we can't say what happened because it might be too late. So
that's what the judge said to me.
He did.
So what's the moral of the story? You have to be yourself despite things. When
to an extent,
I'm in the court and my fly-by-night little attorney says, just plead guilty. I said, to what? Like grabbing a gun from an officer? I said, so we're in the court and the judge is up there and the attorney says, just stand up and say what I say. And so I said, you're fired. And I stood up in the middle of the court and, Judge, I got to tell you the truth. This is my story. Can you give me 5 minutes to tell the story and demonstrate it? And I had the jacket and I did. And it was really about 40 minutes it took me.
Right.
And the judge said, you're either the stupidest person I've ever met, really stupid. Like you don't look stupid, but you could be really stupid. He went on about how stupid I was. And that, or you're telling the truth. And he said, I'm going to believe you that you're telling the truth. My
Mixed
life
message.
would have been over.
Right. Wow. So you went through some stuff, Dr. Pat.
I got rid of the Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Even then, I was reinventing. Thank you, Dr. Mickey, for everything. How do people find out about you? Give them your website.
Well, you can find my website is deltaconsultants.com. You don't even need www. LinkedIn is Dr. Mickey Fineberg, Fineberg, and you can email me at Mickey, Mickey, at deltaconsultants.com. So let's all drink to change. And the reality that we got to get it on here.
Yeah.
It can't be the exception to the rule anymore. It's got to be more of the majority than the minority who engage in this kind of change.
Exactly.
So let's do it.
And a shout out to you, Rooney Mara. Thank you for taking roles that are edgy. Thank you for playing the most incredible role in the movie Carol. Thank you for portraying such beauty and love. Thank you for all the things that people said no to you. And to you, David Finch, you should have really booked her in that second tattoo spider web thing. Why? Because you probably would have sold some tickets. We'll see you all next time.
Take care, everybody.
You have been listening to Inside the Mind of Hiring with me, Dr. Mickey Fineberg. Tune in the first and third Tuesday at 11 on Transformation Talk Radio to discover the psychology of making successful hiring decisions. In each episode, hiring managers and HR pros will learn how to leverage assessments and other key screening sources and avoid common pitfalls. Job seekers will gain insight into successfully presenting themselves. For more information on assessing people for mission-critical jobs and on career assessment and coaching, visit deltaconsultants.com and my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to write me personally, it's Mickey, Mickey, at deltaconsultants.com.